Jojo Siwa recently featured on the tanamongeau podcast, and boy did Tana's fans go off about this because if you didn't already know, Jojo is currently being cancelled for defending Colleen Ballinger, who was cancelled for sending minors inappropriate messages, including Trisha Paytas's leaked OnlyFans pics. She was also exposed for a hell of a lot worse. So the fact that Jojo recently defended Colleen in her recent podcast interview with Howie Mandel really set off fans.
We read. Do you think it's all a lie? Do you think it's... Have you talked to her?
There have been a lot of people on the internet who have gotten hit with this cancellation.
People were obviously ripping into Jojo in the comments after this podcast aired because it really seemed like she missed the point with the whole reason why Colleen got cancelled in the first place. Someone commented, "I know Colleen didn't have inappropriate relationships with children because I have been best friends with this fully grown woman since I was 12. Another user wrote, "Jojo has been surrounded by harmful adults her entire life. It's not surprising to me that she still defends Colleen. It may take years before Jojo realises the reality of the adults around her, including Colleen."
It's funny, like I realized when I hit 18, I was like, oh, this is different now. Like, cause
right.
You know, you're young and you're dumb, and I was like, I need to be very careful about this.
Another commenter wrote, "Love that Howie keeps reiterating that she was 12 when she started her relationship with Colleen, and Jojo isn't aware of the point he is making. This interview just shows how naive she is. She is still a child and likely still being groomed by the adults she is defending. Like others we have seen in the situation, she probably isn't yet aware of what actually is. It's actually really sad listening to her because she isn't actually hearing the words coming out of her mouth." So of course when Tana interviewed Jojo on her podcast, instantly people started dragging Tana the moment that the video was uploaded. Tana had then explained in the comment section of her recent podcast interview with Jojo that they'd filmed this prior to Jojo getting cancelled, and that she had no idea at the time of uploading this interview what Jojo had been cancelled for. "We had her on before she went on to Howie's podcast and defended Colleen. I did not know about any of this until today. Oops. We'll unpack in the next episode." Fans thought that this was a load of crap and that Tana just posted this video for the views. However, someone replied, "Thank you for still allowing her to share her story. I totally understand this was before all the crazy drama, but at the same time, she's still growing and learning. Hopefully as she gets older, she understands everything that has happened to her and realizes some of the trauma that she went through." Another user replied, "She definitely knew, Ellie Mayo." Tana replied to a commenter stating, "1. We're in a contract and have to post every week, can't delete. 2. This has been scheduled to upload since we shot it. We're on tour right now and don't really pay attention to when things are going live. We let the team handle that. 3. We can simply just discuss it on the next episode of Cancelled We Shoot." Within the podcast, people genuinely thought that because of all the hate online that Jojo has been receiving lately, because of all the influencers that she's proudly friends with, fans honestly thought that this was potentially going to be some sort of an apology video. But boy were we wrong. Jojo and Tana didn't even mention Colleen. They did, however, dive into lots of other topics. They discussed how much Jojo makes, her rise to fame, coming out, meeting Miley Cyrus and Elton John, and much, much more.
I jumped to social media. I mean, it was all me, so I would take 2 hours to film a video, 2 hours to edit a video, 2 hours to psychoanalyze if my thumbnail was doing good or not.
After watching this episode, people had a lot to say about Jojo, especially in light of the recent scandal of her defending Colleen on Howie's podcast. Someone had said, "This episode is such a tough watch. You can tell how uncomfortable Brooke is by being basically ignored the entire podcast, and I feel bad for her. It's the worst feeling to be pushed to the background of your own space/show. Aside from all the obvious reasons Jojo shouldn't have been on the show, it sounds almost identical to the other podcasts she's been on in the last few weeks. Same topics, same, oh, I'm an adult now conversations. And I get she's on to tell her story, but converse normally for a minute. It just feels so much like she's on a PR run, trying to gain a new audience, but I think it's going to backfire on her more than anything." Another user wrote, "I feel compelled to comment that Jojo isn't as mature as she thinks she is. Financially mature, sure, but there's other aspects to maturity. She bases her maturity off of how long she's been working. Also, when it comes to dance mums, she doesn't recognise the abuse like the other girls do because she was used to it. Her mum her starting from age 9. Dance Mums was a walk in the park for her, but that doesn't minimise the other girl's negative experience. Just because money came from it and success doesn't mean she can't also acknowledge the negatives from it as well. People also started dragging Jojo for trying to make out like she was poor and hard done by growing up, when that definitely wasn't the case. A user wrote, "My dad was a chiropractor, my mum owned a dance studio, my brother went to private school, and I was homeschooled. Ah yes, the average middle-class life, Jojo, so humble." In light of all the allegations, a Twitter user recently pulled up some receipts that had people shocked. "If I had a nickel for every time a cancelled YouTuber accused of inappropriate contact with minors used Jojo Siwa to make a comeback, I'd have 3 nickels." Which isn't that many, but crazy that it's happened 3 times, right? As we can see, she's filmed with James Charles after his cancellation, Shane Dawson, and also defended Colleen recently. The user continued, "Jojo having a younger audience makes the motive behind this tactic even more explicit. They need a new and naive audience who doesn't know the horrible things they've done. I feel a little conflicted. Remember, she was a child herself when she met all of them, but she also has a responsibility to protect her child audience. Awful all around. I'm the same. On one hand, I feel that these people are taking advantage of a relationship that they fostered with her when she was a minor, which is sad. But on the other hand, what these people have done is morally abhorrent. Why platform them if not for selfish reasons?" Brooke Schofield, who was the woman in Tana's podcast that barely said any words that entire podcast, had something to say about all this after the interview started receiving backlash. She went live and explained that when they'd recorded the episode, nothing had gone down yet.
When we did the JoJo episode, she had not publicly defended Colleen.
No.
Yeah, you know she did that? Did you see it? I didn't see it either, but I'm seeing everyone talk about it. I do not stand anybody who stands Colleen, but lucky for me, I didn't have to say a word during the JoJo.
People did mention that it seemed like Jojo almost ignored Brooke during this interview. Maybe she thought Brooke was irrelevant and Tana wasn't, so just couldn't be bothered acknowledging her. A user wrote, "I think why we don't like guests is because they don't acknowledge Brooke enough. Kinda hate that."
Not one word.
You didn't talk?
Not once.
Why?
I only speak when spoken to.
Wait, what? Wait. Right.
Brooke then talked about how Jojo shouldn't support Colleen and that Brooke herself defends Trisha.
Not canceled, but she is just embarrassing. Like, you can't do that.
What'd she do again?
She just defended Colleen, and I don't that.
Uh-oh.
Well, listen, JoJo, she's young, but
She's an idiot.
stan Trisha.
It's interesting if you think about this podcast because Tana has been all over Trisha lately, all over her social media, on her podcast. She's dragged Colleen through the dirt, even on Trisha's podcast. Yet she still went out of her way to interview someone who heavily defended Colleen.
Can I say her name? No, honestly,
I don't. Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
her so fucking mother hard, Trisha. And I know you sit there, you look pretty, you be nice, because if this goes in, it's gonna get clipped. And here's the thing, she's being non-problematic right now. It is me.
So what are your thoughts on Tana's interview with Jojo Siwa? Let me know in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more juicy tea.